The success we had last year creates expectations, which is a good thing. And we have to make sure that our messaging has been about a standard. Don't worry about expectations, worry about a standard. The standard will take care of expectations.
What's up, guys? Welcome into the Next Up podcast. I'm Adam Breneman. We're on campus at Penn State today, actually on Coach Franklin's balcony, practice field behind us, doing a little Penn State season preview series of podcasts with coaches, players, everything you need to know about Penn State football going into the season, happening right here over the next few days on my YouTube channel. Before we get to the interviews, please subscribe to this channel, whether you're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Press that subscribe button. All your support allows us to travel around the country and have some of the best guests in the country in college football on this show. So please, guys, support the channel. Let's go talk to the guys. Penn State fans, you have an opportunity to see Beaver Stadium in a way you've never seen it before, just 2 weeks before kickoff on Friday, August 18th, with the Beaver Stadium VIP experience put on by Mercury. Fans will get unparalleled access to the locker room, the broadcast booth, luxury suites, and press box at Beaver Stadium. You'll truly spend a day like a Nittany Lion. And the best part is, part of the proceeds will support Penn State football's NIL collective to make sure we can get the best players in the country in Happy Valley. If you're a true Penn State fan, you do not want to miss out on this. Click the link below and claim your spot for the VIP Beaver Stadium experience today. Next up. How things going? 2 weeks into camp now, right?
Yeah.
Been a grind.
Still some of my voice left, so that's a plus.
Coach, I appreciate you doing this. Excited to talk to you. Been a lot of people have been asking me to get you on the podcast, so I'm excited to have you on. 2 weeks into camp, give me the kind of the state of the union on where things are at for the defense.
So far, so good. Tomorrow's a big day. It's kind of our first scrimmage. We'll actually have fans here, which is going to be good to kind of put pressure on us. You got to deal with, the success we had last year creates expectations, which is a good thing. And we have to make sure that, our messaging has been about a standard. Don't worry about expectations, worry about a standard. The standard will take care of expectations. And I think our guys want that. We have a lot of depth. And now it's about, sort of the guys stepping up and taking over some of the roles of some of the great players that left us a year ago.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, when you watch last year's film, obviously so much success on defense, but what's the one thing that during the offseason review you said, we got to get better at this right away in 2023?
Well, it was a beginning to end story. We were obviously so much better in November than we were in September. So one of the big battle cries has been, we can't wait till halfway through the season to really figure out what we're doing. And I think our understanding of how we want to cancel run gaps and how we want to attack up front is better than it was at any point a year ago. And I think that's where it all starts, right? Any great defense has to be great versus the run, and that helps you leverage long yard situations for the offense. Yeah.
You mentioned replacing a lot of the guys you lost. Specifically, what comes to mind is Jair Brown and Joey Porter Jr. How do you go about replacing guys that had such a presence on your defense, and how have those guys that are going to fill in those gaps perform so far in training camp?
Yeah, there's a reason why Joey was picked 32nd overall and take a very high pick. 16 turnovers. We keep telling our guys every day, 16 turnovers
That's a lot.
Are hanging out in San Francisco right now. And we've had some almost plays in practice where we almost make the interception, where you had that feeling that 16 last year would have made it. And those are game-changing plays, and you can look back at your close losses and say, oh, if only, and you can look back at some of your close wins and say, well, you forget those plays that get you over the top. So, we have the guys that have the talent to do it, and they're starting to become more consistent with that. But it's not just now, you talk about on the field, but it's also off the field. So, pull that lens out a little further to P.J. Mustipher and Nick Tarburton and Jonathan Sutherland. I've been fortunate to do this a long time and be around some really, unique individuals. That as a group was about as good of a leadership group as I've encountered anywhere in my career. So that void in the locker room is as important as the void that we've got to replace in terms of production on the field.
Yeah, you just mentioned the turnovers in practice and making those plays. I feel like defensive coaches and the defensive unit has a challenge in practice of you almost can't do things 100% in practice on defense because you can't hit the quarterback, you can't hit receivers, there's so many restrictions for the defense. How do you go about practicing things like forcing turnovers, like stripping the ball, like getting after the quarterback in practice when you can't actually really do it a lot of times?
Yeah, well, Coach Franklin, he makes sure that we have a ball disruption period every day, but again, most people do that. I think, look, we tell our guys every year, everyone understands the correlation between turnovers and winning. There is not a defensive staff that's not preaching turnovers during training camp, and yet someone's going to finish last in the country and someone's going to finish first. And that's why what I mentioned to you is, the way that we look at the game in terms of the game strategy is more turnovers happen on third down and long than any other down and distance. So what creates third down and longs? We were outstanding last year in completion percentage against, right? So you're forcing a lot of incomplete passes, a lot of 0-yard gains. We're top 5 or whatever in TFLs. So you're pitting people behind the chains. If you marry those two things together, you're going to end up in a lot of 3rd and 8 pluses, 7 pluses. And when you do that, you have the ability to get around the quarterback. Now, we've got some players that don't need a lot of help getting around the quarterback. Chop Robinson and Deese Isaac, Denied Dennis Sutton, those guys, they're hard to block as it is. And then you try to do some things schematically, to your point, that even though you can't hit that guy in practice, they can see how it's going to come together. And I think that's the other big thing, too, is that when you look at us from a year ago, this time last year, we were envisioning how these things would look, and we didn't really know. And as the year went on, you correct game mistakes, because game mistakes are different than practice mistakes. I think they have a picture for it now. Tig has a blitz in the Rose Bowl, where we call it the crossover dribble. He kind of Euro steps the right tackle and melts the guy on the field and goes back there and sacks the quarterback. Our guys know now when the dime runs that blitz what it's supposed to look like, as opposed to drawing it up on a chalkboard.
No, that makes sense. From a recruiting evaluation standpoint, was curious to hear your thoughts on how you balance seeing the guy on film who's highly productive but may not have as much upside versus the kid that's 6'6" with 35-inch arms but doesn't look great on film and hasn't produced at a high level in high school. I always feel like that's kind of a tough balance, and how you decide how many of those kids you take, how many you don't take. How do you balance that, and what's your philosophy?
I think that's the never-ending argument between personnel and coaches. It's potential versus performance, right? I think you look at some measurables. It's obviously more than just size, 6'6", 300. We do a great job here with numbers, and whether it's jumping numbers, short shuttle numbers, things like that you know that if the kid can get it. I think you have to be aware of what positions on the field are you talking about. Linebacker and safety are their instinct positions, their decision-making positions. You've got to be able to process the game. And a guy that maybe doesn't run, fantastic, but is a great processor of what he sees, can make a lot of plays. But, then there's some other spots where, the freak positions, you look at how the NFL drafts in the first round, DNs and corners, right? Where that's more, can you run with this guy or can you not run with this guy? Do you have the ability to turn a corner on a 1-on-1 pass rush? So I think all of that goes in. And then you have to look at your own roster. Hey, can we take a developmental guy? We have a great strength program here. They've had a lot of success, before I got here, pounding guys in that weight room, and then year 2, 3, 4, 5 in the program, they're real dudes. So I think it all goes into it.
Take me through your training camp routine. What's a day in training camp look like for you? What time are you getting up? Are you a 4 a.m. guy?
4 a.m. only if something terrible's happened. No, heck no. No, the more we learn about science, the more we understand the power of sleep, right? And you better learn how to sleep fast this time of year. So well, really, there's almost 2 aspects of training camp. This is not unusual to Penn State. Our players just today are getting done with summer school. Next, really today, tomorrow, really starts proper training camp, where it's no school, it's all ball from a.m. to nighttime. So we're normally in around 7 in the morning. Whether it's a staff meeting or with the players, meeting with them. We've had some players that had to go to class, as I mentioned. So we have some sort of morning meeting. We get them back in the afternoon. We meet again. Right on the grass. As soon as we're done on the practice field, we're running inside as a coaching staff to grade it. So you could be getting home at 10:30, and who knows what. And like I said, you sit there and you kiss your wife and you go right to sleep. There's not a whole lot for anything else.
I want to tell you all about our newest sponsor, Athletic Greens. And let me tell you, when I found out about this sponsor, I was fired up because I've been using Athletic Greens for years, and I want to promote to you guys the things I actually use. I love Athletic Greens. As a former Division I athlete, I've tried countless supplements, and recently my nutrition and my health has become a bigger deal for me as I get farther away from my playing career. And let me tell you, Athletic Greens is the real deal. Has me feeling healthy and energized every every single day. With as much as I'm on the road, traveling, shooting podcasts, it's hard to have a healthy diet, hard to have healthy nutrition, hard for me to get my vitamins and minerals every single day. My doctor even told me that last time I saw him. But with Athletic Greens, I get 75 plus vitamins, minerals, and a bunch of other healthy things. I don't even know what they are, but I know they're good for you. And when I wake up every single day now, I feel energized. My digestion has never been better, and I'm ready to attack each and every day because of Athletic Greens and AG1. So if you want to take ownership of your health like I am right now, try AG1 today at drinkag1.com/nextup, and you get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs when you go to my link, tryag1.com/nextup. And guys, all of you who support this podcast, you guys supporting our sponsors helps me a ton. So please go support AG1 and support Next Up through the process and optimize your health and nutrition today. drinkag1.com/nextup. Check it out. Camp isn't what it used to be for players.
Oh, gosh.
Back in your day?
It's funny to think about, just in the time that I've been in this profession, how it's changed,
Yeah.
you know. But it is better in so many ways. Number one, from a learning, you know, you used to cram 29 practices with 2-a-days into a couple weeks, and now you're extending it out.
Yeah.
Look, it's a year-round thing now. The players are lifting, training. You know, I remember they would come back from being at home in the summertime. I remember writing them letters to your team being at home in the summertime. So now they're on campus. You're not using training camp to get in shape.
Yeah.
They're in great shape. Like I said, our strength program does a great job with those guys. But now you get to really spend the time fine-tuning them into what it takes to be great at ball.
Yeah. You know, I wanted to ask you, how have you changed the most from maybe your philosophy, maybe how you coach, from what you learned when you were a head coach to maybe even times before that to now as a defensive coordinator?
Well, you're always evolving. You know, we're teachers, but we're learners, right? And the game is always teaching us. So the game is always evolving. Offenses are always evolving. So, you know, and then you have to adapt what offense is doing to your personnel. So to me, you're always trying to solve the problem. Certainly, being a head coach helped me a lot as a defensive coach. I was able to sit in on quarterback meetings. Had some really good quarterback coaches at the time that I was in Miami. Mm-hmm. And so to see the game from the other side of the ball and understand progressions, learn about the fundamentals of routes and what offenses are trying to accomplish. And the things that you had an idea about, but to really get a deep dive in that, that can't help but make you a better defensive football coach. And I see the difference. I see it in how I teach the players, you know, and understanding how it is that people are trying to attack us.
Yeah. How's the competition with Coach Yurcich in practice? Is that a fun one?
It's always intense. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, they ask a lot of questions even before the snap, just getting lined up with the tempo and the multiplicity of the formations that they present. But I always say this: it's much better to get that from your own team, because if you're very vanilla on offense and then all of a sudden you get in the season and you've got to rely on a scout team to give you all these motions and shifts, that's very difficult. And we hope we do the same thing for them as well. We hope that you know, that there's certain coverages they see in the season, they're licking their chops in certain fronts, because we want to make their life as hard on them as we can during this time.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I was just talking to someone else about this, do you feel like there's maybe a shift in offensive football right now, in college especially, maybe going back a little bit more towards like power football? It got so spread out for so long, right? And everyone was going sideline to sideline. Have you seen that at all, where maybe that people are starting to pay more attention? You see Alabama hiring Tommy Rees, who's the pound it down your throat kind of coordinator. Are you seeing that shift at all? You
know, it's interesting because we use words like spread, pro style,
What's
these type
really
things.
mean, right?
Yeah, and what does it mean? Because even as the formations were spreading out, there weren't very many good people that didn't run the ball this direction, north and south. And whether that was inside zone or whether it's duo, power, counter, whatever it is, you've got to be able to attack, you know, the straight line, shortest distance between two spots. What transformed the game was the RPO. Because as a defense coordinator back in the day, you could get in the right front, you get your numbers right, get it fitted right, and they would just try to hammer it in there. And if, you know, it really was a battle of will and a battle of toughness. And I think that still matters, and it's still paramount. But now they've got relief. So you've got to really extend. You have to gap out your defense, not just sideline to sideline horizontally. I think that's what came about 15 years ago. But then the last decade or so, you have to gap out your defense vertically. And so you better be able to cover. That's what it comes down to, in addition to just be able to fit the run.
I heard you talk recently, I think Coach Franklin talked about it too, is kind of Obviously, with the success you've had and the success you're having here, there's going to be opportunities for head coaching roles. I'm sure you've had some last year, but the desire and the cool part about being a coordinator and getting to focus on ball and being able to actually be in there with the guys every day. How do you balance that when you're making decisions, when you're viewing just kind of what you want your life to look like and the benefits of just being able to call plays?
Right. Well, I love my job,
Yeah.
and that's the first thing. And I tell people all the time when they ask me for advice in this profession, I always ask them, I said, are you happy? And if you're happy, don't mess with happy, because happy's hard to beat. I also love being a head coach, though. But I think what you realize after, and I've spoken with other head coaches, and you realize it's about being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And timing does matter. And so if you get that opportunity again, you want to make sure that the program is in the right hands. You want to make sure that whatever the expectation for the program is, that the support matches the expectation, because there'll always be an angst if those two things are not aligned. And so it gives you the opportunity when you get to work at a place like this and with a staff like this to be more selective in a way. And so, I said, you could love two things at once, but right now I do love the fact that I get to compete and what I get to do on this stage.
Last thing I got for you, Coach. From a defensive perspective, how are you defining success this season?
Well, success is holding them to one less point than what we score. I mean, really, it is.
Yeah.
I told a story the other day. There's one part of my career at NC State, we led the nation in total defense, like 220 a game, and only won 5 games that year. I just, look, it's really hard. We do all this stuff, man, and there's nothing, and I know you know this, there's nothing like a winning locker room in football. It's just the greatest. And whether it's 2-0 or 52-50, and nothing like winning, because you put so much into a week. And it was so fun to watch our guys last year, especially in that last month of the season when we got really hot. And you see those faces, you see the faces in that locker room in the Rose Bowl. Yeah. And that's what it's all about.
Cool.
Yeah, so to me, now I say this, there are things that we base our defense around that we think help us win games. Yeah. So that matters. So we do monitor those metrics, but there's no metric that matters more than finding a way to win, and that ultimately comes down to giving up points.
Sorry, one more. What is the most important statistical metric you think for a defense? Is it points per game? Is it turnovers?
Well,
it obviously it's points per game.
Yeah, certainly it's points. So everyone knows that. So what creates points? Yeah. The most simple thing that creates points is explosive touchdowns allowed plus red zone touchdowns allowed. There's only 2 ways to score, right? From far away or from in close. So if you make sure your defense is really good about not giving up scores from far away, and then really are hard to score in the red zone, I think we were top 10 in red zone touchdown percentage a year ago, then you're not going to give up very many points.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Coach, I appreciate your time. I'm excited to see you this season and love what you're doing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Appreciate
Thanks for being
here. Thanks, Coach. Thank you. It was easy, right?
Yeah,
not
of
too
course.
bad. Yeah.